Hello beautiful people and welcome to another video. Sometimes you find a piece of furniture like this and you just think to yourself, what the heck is this? I don't know what this person was going for because there is some gold leafing and really lovely fuchsia paint and it just looks awful. And look at the paint job, it's just so crackly and so bad. Anyway, the drawers were a bit stuck. The wood was in a very poor shape, very dry, lots of cracks, lots of woodworm damage, and this chest of drawers needed some major TLC. I'll take care of these bottoms later. My friend Chris Donna from Bella Renovare calls these Batman hardware, and yeah, I don't like them either, and they need to go. Also, only one of the drawers had a lock and two of the keyhole inserts were missing, so I had to do something about that. There were lots of nails stuck in the wood and lots of little things I had to do. Just overall, it was a mess. And don't even get me started on this thing that I removed. It didn't even match the rest of the chest of drawers. I don't know if this was an afterthought or something, but yeah, that had to go as well. So because this was pine and it's seen a lot of abuse, so there were lots of dings and holes and scratches and all sorts of things with paint embedded in the wood, so it took a lot of sanding and I didn't really know what to do with it. I kind of wanted to go for a rustic look, but because of the damage I just wasn't sure how I was going to go about it. And by the way, I'm just going to use all sorts of sanders just to keep you entertained and make the sanding a bit more interesting. So this is an air sander and it's got more rotations per minute, and this is a mini version of the same sander, which is kind of cute and it's very useful actually when you're sanding something that's, you know, like a small area as shown in the picture. And because of the rotation speed, it actually removes whatever you're trying to remove much quicker than a regular sander, so it can be very useful. Don't worry, that's not all the sanding, I will do some more. The skirting, I just didn't look right, don't know what it is about it, but I just don't like it and I pretty much always remove it, and also it was in a pretty rough shape, so I just wanted to get rid of it and do something else, and I got distracted by another cat. Cats are pretty much to me what squirrels are to dogs. I get easily distracted, and if you've seen my videos you know that these are not my cats, these are neighborhood cats, and this one is called Hugo and he's the coolest out of all of them. I always love when they come around. Anyhow, so when I removed the skirting, a piece of this stretcher came off because it was glued to the skirting, so I used my router to get a nice and straight line and use the skirting that I removed to basically cut a thin strip of wood and to glue it in place of the little bit that came off. Hope it makes sense. Have I already said that this project was a mess? Yeah, I don't know how many times I changed my mind about what I wanted to do with it and the actual color of it. I think I stained it 3 or 4 times. I recorded most of it, so you'll see later on, but this was just something else. Like I said, there was more sanding, so as always I sanded the bottom, the inside, and everywhere else. There was lots of little things, as you can see. The drawer stoppers will need to be replaced and I will do it towards the end of the video, so don't worry about it. And also, I just like when everything is nice and clean. When someone ends up buying one of these pieces, I just don't want to be ashamed when they look inside. Also, I fixed one of the runners because, as you can see, just wasn't glued at all. I also sanded the back, and as you can see, the difference is quite obvious. Just looks so much better. And also this way I can put my logo on it and you actually will be able to see it. Some of the boards that they use for the backing of this chest of drawers were very loose, so I just attached them with a few nails. And here you can see the woodworm damage, at least some of it, and it was really bad. I used the treatment for woodworm off camera. I've done it in many videos before, so you can have a look if you want to. And then I wanted to fix the actual damage, so I decided to use wood filler in pine because this was pine, but somehow when it dried it was completely white, so I don't know how that was pine, but whatever, that was pretty annoying. But anyhow, you will see that it didn't really matter. In the meantime, just to cheer myself up, I did some more sanding because, that's my favorite thing to do. And because I love it so much, I got this really cool new graphic design and I have it on all sorts of products in my YouTube shop, and you can find it underneath each video. So if you're interested, have a look.
2,000 years later.
After much needed another cut break, I was ready to tackle the drawer bottoms. I started by removing all the nails so I could actually adjust the bottoms because there were cracks and they just needed to be moved. And I used this tool that you actually use for removing upholstery nails or staples, and it was actually very useful and worked surprisingly well. Because the wood was very dry and prone to cracking, I just made some very tiny pilot holes for the nails. You're smart people, so I don't need to tell you how I fix the drawers, you can see what I'm doing, but I do want to say thank you to everyone who supports my channel and me via Buy Me a Coffee, my Amazon wishlist link, by hitting the super thanks button or visiting my shop. That means a lot and it helps to keep the lights on. Thank you. And a special huge thank you to all of my channel members, you guys rock. So this is what it looks like after all the sanding. It isn't great, and I knew it wouldn't be. And I think the best way to go about it, because there's still marks from the Batman hardware and all sorts of other things, I think I'm just gonna run the fronts of the drawers through my planer and just take off a bit more material and see how that looks. So this is what it looked like before the planer. and I did 3 passes on each drawer, taking very little material at a time. And this is what it looked like when I was done. Well, I think it's much better. So the difference is significant, and as you can see, all the marks from the hardware are gone, other than the top drawer, which I actually ended up running through the planer one more time. So I was pretty happy, but I still had all this damage on the side. And I was thinking maybe I should just cover the whole side with pine veneer, even I could actually find some. I didn't want to paint it, and stain was not going to cover all the damage, and I didn't really want to bother trying to color match it because there was just so much of it, so you'll see what I did. So before I tackle the sides of the chest of drawers, I wanted to do something about the corners, or at least the front part of the corners. So I had some pine lying around and I cut very thin strips of it that kind of worked like veneer and just glued it on. And once everything was dry, I actually sanded it even more so it was thinner and just hardly noticeable. And I wasn't really worried about cutting them to the correct size because I just used my router to trim them afterwards. And this is me doing everything that I just told you about. Well, so this is the frustrating part because I wanted to keep it natural, make it rustic and light color, as I often try. It just never really works. So I decided to mix a couple different stain colors and to achieve, I would say, like a muddy color and to blend everything together because all the wood filler and all the imperfections, and I just wanted to blend everything together. And yeah, so that was the idea. So I tried mixing several different stains, and this is the color that I got. And if you are a fellow healthcare worker, this would probably be type 7 on the Bristol's tool chart. If you know, you know. I think this was just one of those projects that I just threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at and was hoping that something would stick. Even the brush that I used, I think I used it with black or like dark stain before, so even though it was dry, some of the paint just came off and mixed with the stain I was applying, so like half of the top is a bit darker, so I just had to redo it. Anyhow, so I just applied it to the entire chest of drawers, and the stains actually didn't mix very well together, even though it was the same brand and whatever. So this is what it looked like when I was done with it, and I absolutely hated it. So I thought about it for a while and looked at it, and I still hated it, so I decided to sand the whole thing off. And as I was sanding the top, I realized I just wanted to do something completely different with it. And yes, do not unsubscribe yet, just hold your horses. This actually will make sense in the end. So you've probably seen me use the Shushugiban technique before, and I think there's a time and place for this, and sometimes it works very well. And I think in this particular case, it just made a lot of sense because there was just so much damage and so many imperfections that trying to blend all of it with stain or whatever else would have been a huge headache, and the piece of furniture was just old, not particularly well made, and just not really worth trying to redo the whole thing. So I decided that this was the best course of action. And now I'm just applying a coat of satin cellulose finish, and this is not the finish that I want to put on this chest of drawers. This is just to lock everything in and to seal the whole piece, because when you torch it, there is a lot of soot that comes off when you touch it, so you need to do something to kind of stabilize it, and that's what this did. And then when everything was dry, I was actually able to apply the furniture oil that I wanted to use as my finish. And as I was waiting for the piece to dry, I wanted to make something really cool that I could use to stage the furniture with, because I think that I just need to up my game when it comes to that. So I decided to use my P2 CO2 laser from xTool to make a custom piece of art. You've probably seen me use this machine before, but this was just so incredibly easy. I went on Etsy, downloaded files for this design, and used my laser to cut 10 different layers of this design, and I glued everything together. You can stain it if you want to, but you don't need to. And this just looked so cool. This is 3D. There are many different designs that you can choose from, many different shapes and sizes, and I thought it was just beautiful. When the clear coat was dry, I applied 3 coats of furniture oil, and the reason I went with this option is because it kind of looked like resin, and I really liked it. I also stamped my logo on the back of this chest of drawers, and I applied the same oil just to make it look a bit nicer and to protect it. Meanwhile, as my P2 laser was hard at work on this design, I stained the drawers with a different stain color, and I still hate them. So yeah, this just wasn't gonna work. So I actually tried a different color on top of this, a bit darker, and this is what it looked like. And I still hated it, so I just sanded the whole thing off, and I applied transparent furniture oil with a little bit of added white, which is hilarious because this is exactly what I did at the very beginning before all the staining, but just never showed it to you guys. And that gave me a natural kind of bleached look that I was happy with. Anyway, let's do some more sanding. This time with PrepMate 3, which is an alternative to ServPrep, which I haven't been able to buy in the UK. And this one is sold by a friend of mine from Australia who runs a small business. And I paid for this about 60% of what I would have paid for the ServPrep. And that includes the customs fee that I had to pay because I live in the UK, and it works very, very well. I'll put a link in the description, and they might be out of stock, but I know she will get more, so just order one and wait a little bit. It's worth it. And if you need to, you can just change the plug or you can use an adapter. I changed the plug because it was very simple. And this is how I attach the legs that you just saw a minute ago. And I also use the same tinted oil on them to kind of match the drawers. If you remember from the beginning of the video, 2 of the 3 locks were missing, And I thought about replacing them, but because I decided to cover the keyholes, this is what I did to make it look okay. So these are the colors that I ended up with, and I'm pretty happy with that. As far as the keyhole inserts, not sure if you can see that, but the top drawer, the opening is just way too big, so I would have had to repair it somehow, and probably you would be able to see the transition from the replacement piece. So instead of doing that, I just came up with these name tag holder thingies to cover the keyholes, and I thought it actually looks pretty cool and goes with the rustic look. And for the handles, I had these for a long time and never thought I would actually use them, but I just color matched them and used those decorative brass flathead screws to attach these handles because I had to attach them somehow, and this is just a nice way to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're interested in the xTool P2 CO2 laser, I'll put a link in the description. If you'd like to support me and the channel, all the links are down below, and if you're feeling extra generous, you can smash the super thanks button. Thank you so much for watching, enjoy the final results, and see you in the next video.